Wengine naona wanajaribu kukutana, sijui wanafanya mkutano. Ati wanatengeneza chama. Ile chama wanajaribu kutengeneza, wanaongea masaa 4. William Ruto. 4 hours. Sasa mimi nauliza nyinyi, kwani hii chama walikuwa wanatengeneza ilikuwa ya William Ruto? Ama hiyo chama inaitwa William Ruto? Sasa nyinyi sera yenu William Ruto, mpango yenu William Ruto, maono yenu William Ruto. Sasa mimi nataka niwaambie wale jamaa na niwatangazie wa Kenya, hawa watu ambao walikuwa wanaongea mambo ya William Ruto, mimi sijawatuma. Hiyo chama wanaongelea hapo si ya William Ruto. So hawa ni matapeli. Watafute chama na jina yake wapatiane, sio William Ruto ama namna gani? Na watafute sera, na watafute mpango, na watafute vision. Otherwise wataungua. We are trusting God for our nation. Na kwa sababu kuna watu walikuwa wametuwekea mitego mingi. Kwanza mimi, mitego mingi. Asipoangukia hapa, ataangukia pale. Asipoangukia hapa, ataangukia pale. Mpaka leo, ukisoma gazeti ya leo, wanasema huyu Ruto ni mjanja. Mimi nawaambia, mimi si mjanja. Ni neema ya Mungu, na kwa sababu namwamini Mungu, sio ujanja. Ati kwa sababu nimeruka mtego hii, nikaruka mtego ile, wakasema eti mimi ni mjanja. Hapana. Ni kwa sababu nafanya ile Ibrahimu alifanya. Alimwamini Mungu. Hata kama mambo yalikuwa magumu namna gani, alizidi na kumwamini Mungu. And I am telling them, it is not what you are saying. It is God's favor upon our nation.
Unajua watu wangu wanakuanga watu wazuri. Hawananga maneno. Ni vile tu unajua wiki iliyopita walifanya makosa mahali. Si mnajua? Si mliona ile makosa walifanya? Na hiyo sio njia ambayo sisi tunakubaliana nayo. They did a big mistake. Mimi naomba msamaha kwa niaba yao. Mambo kama hayo haitarudia tena. Naomba msamaha. Tulikaa pamoja na wale viongozi wa idara nyingine ya serikali. Tukakutana na waziri, tukakutana na MD. Serikali haifai kubishana hivyo na kuweka takataka mbele ya wananchi. That one I am very sorry about. It is not how we operate. It is not how we behave as Nairobi County. Jana tumeenda huko, tumewasafishia, tumeweka fumigation, hata maua tutawapandia ili uhusiane. Unajua kama tunakudai na unanidai, tunamaliza kwa meza, si ndio? Sio mbele ya wananchi. On that one, unajua mtu akifanya jambo ambalo ni kosa, ni mzuri aombe msamaha.
Nairobi nilisema ndio capital city ya Kenya. Haiwezi kuwa mahali pachafu. Haiwezi kuwa mahali ambapo watoto hawasomi. We must give the true face of Kenya using Nairobi, and therefore we are going to work with the leaders of Nairobi, from the governor, the members of parliament, MCAs, together to make sure that Nairobi becomes the true face of the Republic of Kenya. Namshukuru governor wetu Bwana Sakaja. Juzi walifanya makosa. Nikampigia huyu governor simu. Nikapigia wale wengine masimu. Nikamwambia sikizeni. Haya mambo mtakoma. Na nashukuru governor aliomba msamaha kwa sababu ilitokea makosa, na it takes a courageous, strong leader to say I'm sorry. Governor, congratulations for apologizing.
Thanks for creating time for Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. Noordean, you just come in and you've seen a paper on your desk and you sound surprised. Why are you shocked? Why are you in a state of shock?
I thought it was service upon me. Sorry for but then I realized it has nothing to do.
Yeah, but at the end of the conversation, it may have everything to do with you.
Yes.
Mr. Owidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Mokua.
What are your highlights of the week?
It was a beautiful week, but I have realized my brother Khagai is really throwing punches. And the punches are very big. They can make people sick. But I've also
They can make people sick.
But I've also noticed,
They can cause an infection.
But I've also noticed my brother Raila has kept the whole country guessing. He's never saying anything straight. So we are where we are. Let's wait and see.
Mwangale, welcome to the show. What are your highlights?
Thank you very much. My week's highlight is out of the country. My week's highlight is Zelensky and Trump. And I think it has a bearing on where the Russia-Ukraine war will go in the next few months. I think we will be bidding goodbye to that bit of geopolitics. I think the invasion is going to come to an end very soon, going by that spat between Zelensky and Trump, which is a good thing for supply chains across the world, a good thing for Africa. I think African presidents will now cease blaming the invasion of Ukraine for grain shortages. So we will have lesser excuses on the continent, which is a good thing.
You know, now you've introduced an international relations dynamic. Maybe we need to spend a little more time on that. Mm-hmm. When President Zelensky was at the White House, he was addressing his audience back at home, Ukraine, while President Trump and his vice president, they were addressing the American audience. And one would see two things. The first thing is that some Americans accused President Zelensky of not checking in a suit, but nobody has ever accused Elon Musk of not putting on a suit. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were pictures of Elon Musk attending a cabinet meeting with a T-shirt, trousers, and his child, son in tow, you know, playing around in the cabinet room, but nobody raised a finger. But when President Zelensky checks in, one of the journalists says, wait a minute, you can't afford a suit or you don't respect the US president. And then secondly, after Zelensky was treated to a nasty reception, the following day he goes to the UK, and the UK Prime Minister receives him with what one may say a red carpet, hugs, and there's even a demonstration, people saying that we like President Zelensky. And then the following day, Sunday, today, is supposed to have met with King Charles. What do you make of the difference in reception in the US and in the UK?
First, President Trump has always been unconventional. But I think what we saw at the Oval Office between him and Zelensky points to one thing. First, my own observation is that he is not so much in control as he was in the first term. The way the vice president and members of the cabinet were throwing spats, and I mean, he just sat back and watched. In fact, it appeared, if you contrast the vice presidents, J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris, and Trump's first vice president, Mike Pence. J.D. Vance appears very vocal. And they are all unconventional. But as regards geopolitics, I think it is a pointer to the fact that the United States is stepping away increasingly from interference, global interference. So we're likely to see Europe carrying their own cross as regards Ukraine and Ukrainian support in terms of military support and financial aid. The US is stepping away completely from Ukraine. So the rift that we are seeing, and in fact now the reception in London was a response to the Oval Office because Trump has insisted to the European leaders that he's no longer going to support the endeavors across the continent. So to me, and now we must also bear in mind that the US has been a big supporter of the Ukrainian war. They have sent in ammunition, they have sent in missiles, they have sent in money, billions of dollars. So if they retract that, then Ukraine is left with Europe, which is a very precarious position for Ukraine to be in.
Now, Noordean, welcome to the show, and the producers confirmed the next time you'll get dates, and no paper will be placed in front of you without notice, because we don't want you to get unnecessary blood pressure. What is your major event of the week?
The Damascus moment in Kenya Kwanza, that Shah is not shying. We told them that this thing is not working. Now I see Dismus Baraza is now telling the president the same thing. And the president is now telling us that, yeah, it has issues and it will work. I thought it was working. But when we say it, we are told we are hating. But finally, the Damascus moment is here. Now, let's see whether it works out. Because it's not working.
And when you talk about the Damascus moment and you are Muslim, people would assume that you've read the Bible into detail. But where is the Damascus moment? Because the leadership of Shah and Chief and Mr. Owidi has got a lot more knowledge. The reason why some private healthcare providers are not giving service is not because Shah or Chief. It's because of unpaid obligations from NHIF. So when you say the new scheme is not working, is it that NHIF, of course, again, as a lawyer, you know that when you've got a new company, they inherit all the liabilities and assets. So are you talking about the liabilities of NHIF or the medical services as produced by the new scheme? And where is the Damascus moment?
First and foremost, they were saying the remittances are quite low. Why is that? They need to ask themselves that. Services that they provide, courtesy of the scheme. They say this scheme, it's going to help everyone. By Damascus moment, I mean Dismus was on the ground. His voters told him it's not working. And so he had to realize it's not. He had to accept because they told him. And when he said, I'll tell the president it's not working, why do they cheer if I told it is working? So at the end of the day, I do have friends who are doctors. They'll tell you the stress they go through, courtesy of that, the new scheme that came about. And the big question we always ask is, why do we leave NHIF? The only thing NHIF had was loopholes that were corruption loopholes. What was the point of changing everything? This government is obsessed with, we were the first to do this. They like that term, we were the first to do this, or to come up with new things. That's why they relaunched things like eCitizen. I once told you that. They relaunched eCitizen and told us, now we have eCitizen. You see, so at the end of the day, I am saying this because there are people who are suffering. Teachers were meant to stop getting the services. Courtesy of hospitals saying they're not being paid their dues. So the question is, when will they be paid? And least I forget, we have 1.3 trillion missing. So how are you going to be paid if you are missing money from Treasury? So who's stealing money in this country? But wait.
It appears you have stepped on the toes of Kevin Owidi.
Listen, we are missing money as a country, 1.3 trillion. When we say trillion, it's like it's like we are sipping tea, but it's a big thing. At the end of the day. But we have 20 million for construction of churches. So we are back to that again. You see, the president is the gift that keeps giving. As in, you give your opponents weapons against you.
Maybe they'll go to church for healing.
And then he said he'll give another 100 million. You see, we are back to doing the same things before the 25th of June 2024. As in, this government doesn't learn, man. And that's why I ask myself, is it self-sabotage or what is it?
Mr. Owidi, are your associates engaging in self-sabotage?
Noordean is a very educated man. Very educated.
He's a landmark
and
from his village.
If you look at a headline on the Nation and you come and tell us here that 1.3 trillion is missing. I read that story twice and I was wondering, why do we have this headline here? Actually, the headline is reading that 1.3 trillion has been withdrawn outside the system. If you want to be a good reporter, tell us this year 1.3 trillion has been withdrawn outside the system compared to the 1 trillion that's withdrawn the previous year. One way or the other, the resources of this country has to be used to provide services to this country. How they provide those services is provided in the PFM Act, how some of these things have to be spent. But there are also not only loopholes, but exceptions. And even when you look at that, you will find that a large chunk of that money has been used to pay smaller things, pensions which cannot go through the system because some of those people don't even have proper bank accounts. Some of them have been done by county governments and so on. But I think people have made up their mind that they have got a punching bag in the president to punch. And I can tell them, a time will come when you will wish you had Ruto on that seat. If people like Gachagua are the one going to replace him. A man who is so brazen that would say things I would be too embarrassed to open my mouth to say. But nevertheless, another thing which people make so much noise about is, oh, SHIF is not working. Why did we need to get out of NHIF?
People here to meet somebody
NHIF and SHIF are exactly the same thing. It is only the name that has been changed. Then other things have been added. We have now added the critical diseases to the thing. We have added funds for health infrastructure. We have added primary health care to it. And also I need to tell you and everybody else listening, SHIF is not a service provider. It is an underwriter. If the hospitals are unable to provide services, it is not SHIF. SHIF is supposed to pay for those services that they will have provided. The other day, there was so much noise that private hospitals have withdrawn. They are not going to accept SHIF. And I was saying, what is the heck is this? When I saw their reasons. Some of them are claiming debts that are as far back as 15 years ago.
NHIF.
Yes. And they are coming now to tell us that now they are going to down their tools. Why didn't they do it then? So that's why I'm telling you there is a conspiracy against President William Ruto in this country that it's so difficult. But I also blame him because I think he slept for far too long as these people were ganging up against him, capturing the media.
Who is that?
Who is that what?
President Ruto slept on the job.
I think he did. Why he did? Where was he when Rigathi Gachagua was planning the Gen Z uprising? He wasn't there. In fact, he seemed to have woken up on 25th. And then the people around him are not helping much. In fact, now they have disappeared. Nobody's even trying to let Kenyans know the truth of the origin of Gen Zs. But nevertheless, let me go to the United States. The first mistake the people of the United States made was to elect a businessman for a president. He looks at everything in terms of business, in terms of what he can get out of it, in terms of sales and purchases. So, but I also must tell them that Ukraine is not a state of the United States. They have their own culture. If your culture is a blue suit and a red tie, keep it. Because I noticed that man, Zelensky, he was wearing a shirt with a badge of a coat of arms of Ukraine on it. And that was good enough. And you were just saying here a few minutes ago that actually Elon Musk is ever in the corridors of White House in a T-shirt, and nobody seemed to complain. So another thing which I also have to tell you, the United States needs Europe more than Europe needs United States. United States is a single country with a single vote. What Trump has failed to understand, and I'm not going to tell you what I blame, is that the wealth of the United States is more reliant on its influence rather than real assets.
Oh, did you have a US visa?
And they are trying to, in fact, what they are doing, they are destroying their influence. You know, you have influence on me. If I'm driving your car, I'm using your house, you have a lot of influence. I cannot even challenge you. But the moment the United States begins to be useless to other countries, the influence will fade off. And when that influence fades off, they will discover even the dollar will never have the strength it has. So I think Donald Trump is not as politically intelligent as I thought he was.
Do you have a US visa?
I don't have, but I don't intend to have one soon. And when I will have, I think probably...
it's in 4 years.
Trump will, it's only 4 years.
Now, Mwangale, let's go to the Judicial Service Commission. And I'm preaching to the choir boys because the two of you are lawyers. That the Judicial Service Commission is established by Article 171 and 172. And judges enjoy decisional independence,
Yeah.
and the entire judiciary enjoys institutional independence. They've got financial autonomy. And now there is a matter to remove Supreme Court judges. And one of the matters which comes to the face is the one by, the issue, accusations against Justice Isaac Lenaola. And going through the documents, he's been accused of a matter that he was not a member of the bench, the matter of Dari and the Honorable Raphael Tuju. A reasonable man would come to the conclusion that the Judicial Service Commission has not been very solid in the way they've handled this matter. And a prudent man can come to the conclusion that there is a level of incompetence and mediocrity in the manner that they're handling these petitions. Because they're accusing Justice Lenaola of a judgment, and he was not a member of the bench. As a lawyer, what do you make of what the Judicial Service Commission has done so far?
I was mentioning before we began that amongst the independent constitutional commissions, the JSC is perhaps one of those commissions that operates in complete opaqueness. These other commissions, have their own procedures. If you need to make a complaint, this is what happens. After the complaint, this is the procedure that is taken. There are guidelines. I don't know if, Noordean, you have come across, directions. We call them practice directions, the equivalent of practice directions at the JSC. I have no idea where those are, or if at all they exist. We don't know what mechanisms past the complaint, past a petition that has been forwarded to the JSC. We don't know what happens. We don't know what criteria the JSC employs in handling these complaints, and that is a great cause of concern. And I think this is a gap that has now been exploited by certain people, who are calling for reform within the JSC and at the Supreme Court. Because when you have a commission as important as the JSC, and complaints are left to their own whims, they can receive a complaint and decide on one specific day that complaint does not warrant their attention. They can receive a petition and decide that petition warrants their attention. We don't know what then informs those decisions. It is important for transparency, because this commission has to be transparent, the judiciary has to be transparent. It is important that we have guidelines, we have certain regulations that govern the JSC itself beyond the Judicial Service Commission Act. So that has been a failing of the JSC. When it comes to Justice Lenaola and the Dari Limited case, which was by Raphael Tuju, one would argue that Isaac Lenaola cannot claim that he was not a part of the bench because, he's a part of the Supreme Court. So he can't say that happened when I wasn't here. On the other hand, it would have been important for the JSC to sieve through, and I agree with some of the affirmance by Justice Lenaola, that it was important for the JSC to sieve through these complaints and the petition, so that and that calls into question the regulations and the criteria I was talking about. If there's a criteria, then it would be useful for the public, for even the public, to see that this is the criteria that the JSC has employed to ask Isaac Lenaola to respond to the allegations that have been presented before him. That is critical. But again, one of the issues that have come out beyond the Dari issue is the conduct of the entire bench of the Supreme Court. So that he can't run away from. He's still a part of the Supreme Court in that regard. But again, one of the things that we must be clear about is there may be certain influences beyond people who just want reform, beyond people who just want a clean judiciary. And you can see that from the various figures that are behind this petition, the various figures that have gone public challenging the Supreme Court. And we're not saying, by the way, the Supreme Court is infallible. They're just final. And if I may borrow James Madison's statements, James Madison is one of the foremost proponents of separation of powers. And he says this, that the apex court, the Supreme Court in our case, is not final because it is infallible. It is infallible because it is final. So we are not saying that the Supreme Court is not infallible. They are prone to make mistakes. They are prone, because they are human beings, they will make misjudgments. But then the place to litigate a decision of the Supreme Court is not the JSC. And we have seen already objections that have been raised by a few judges from the bench, saying if we have made a decision that you're not pleased with, you can't go to the JSC to say these people made a decision that I did not like, or that did not agree to my interpretation of the law. So that scenario where we are now lost on, is it that people just want this bench out, or is it that we are really looking at cleaning the judiciary? Because the truth be told, we have a big rot. As we have in the executive, as we have in the legislature, the judiciary has a big rot that needs to be cleaned out.
Now, Noordean, Mwangale said that when the Supreme Court takes a decision, it's a wrap. You can't go to the Judicial Service Commission. So what happens if I'm unhappy with that decision taken by the Supreme Court? Do I run to Arusha or I go to The Hague?
You can pull a Sonko and run there, but it's a rap like Moi. Mm-hmm. It's done.
I mean, A-R-A-P or...
It's done. It's done. So at the end of the day, what he says is true, because there is some opaqueness as to how JSC handles its issues. And we've had issues as well as those who practice. And we've had questions that haven't been answered. That being said, yes, it is true, the judiciary, as we all know, and the CJ herself said, it has corruption. There are issues of corruption. But you see, in fighting corruption in the judiciary, it should never be through political interference. Then that means it loses the meaning of that vetting process that you want to have. And some would argue that what is ailing Raila right now, or the push to have all of them out, him included, is a statement he made about IBC. Do you remember the statement?
Yes.
He said there is no IBC until today, and we see no commitment to form IBC. And then the same people will come to us to uphold your elections. All right?
Was that not a fair statement?
Yes, it was. But to those with thin skin, they felt threatened. They felt he wouldn't subscribe to their thinking. All right? And this crusade to clean the judiciary, for example, it shouldn't be like, you see, let's not make it like a personal vendetta. Because what we see right now, by those who are pushing, of course they have personal issues with the bench. You see, like for example, I personally do not agree with how they handled, like for example, Ahmed's issue, by saying that you buy even his advocates from appearing before you. That's wrong. It's a wrong way of how they handle the thing. But at the end of the day, let us clean the judiciary. But you see, if you clean the judiciary and the executive and National Assembly are still dirty, see, these same people will dirtify this same place. So what are you doing? It's a zero-sum game. I do believe that the push for a clean judiciary, as Kibaki did when he took over, remember, the vetting we had, where there was some, there was some kind of colonial judges who were like, even seeing you, if you're a lady with earrings, it was a mess. If you're a gentleman with a fitting suit, some you never address them, But we cleaned them back then. I do believe that, yes, it's an ongoing process, but I'm very hesitant to jump on a crusade I know no mission about, with personal issues attached to it. I do believe that, yes, we need to clean it, but I will not join this bandwagon. I just feel like there's something sinister about it, and those who are pushing it are well known, for lack of a better word, to have worked with the regime of today. Some in the political scene would be called spanner boys. I would not follow that route.
You made a statement which, again, we should make a rational human being smell a rat. So are you suggesting that the push to remove the Supreme Court judges is all about settling personal scores?
It seems to be that way, at the end of the day. That's how it looks like. Because let us be honest. If, for example, we want to clean the judiciary, are you trying to tell me that the Supreme Court is the only place that has corruption?
But you have to start from somewhere.
No, listen, it's fine. So we have no IBC at the moment. and then no Supreme Court all of a sudden, are you not putting the country at anarchy? What are you doing?
But that is the same warning Justice Lenola gave.
Exactly. And immediately he says that things start rolling. You see, you always have to look at things holistically. And I do believe that political players, this constitution that we have is pro-people. And the political class hate it because at the end of the day, there's no room to navigate it. That's why BBI failed. So at the end of the day, I do believe that there is more of political interference as opposed to clean the judiciary. When the crusade or mission is only clean the judiciary, then I'll board that train. Until then, I'll sit out, eat my popcorn.
Owidi, these two gentlemen describe themselves as learned friends, and they've suggested that their political class is settling a personal scores. And a gentleman that you don't seem to have a lot of love for, called Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, has indicated that if you send Martha Koome home, don't ever dare step in Murang'a. Rigiji has given President Ruto a warning that if Martha Koome goes home, don't dare step in Meru. As a member of the political class, do you guys have personal scores to settle with the Supreme Court?
No, but there's something I have to say. We cannot summon people in the Supreme Court for a single offense or one judgment. That means we are turning the JSC into a court and a court superior to Supreme Court. We would be turning the JSC into an appeal court where you go to when you fail at the Supreme Court. That would not happen. But if they have multiple offenses, an acceptable way of doing things, then let them face the JSC. And if they are being taken before the JSC for minor offenses or for no offenses, they are going to prosecute their case there and come out clean. So they shouldn't be worried. There's nobody who has a vendetta against them.
Do you suspect that if you take a goat to a court made up of lions, there will be justice?
And this idea, I'll come to that. And this idea of everything that goes before for impeachment, whether it is Gachagua, whether it is Koome, the government is blamed for spearheading it. There are people, individuals, who have petitioned the JSC. There were individuals who petitioned Parliament and Senate to impeach Gachagua. Let's look at them. Let them be the ones to tell us that, we were sent by so-and-so. But as long as they prosecute those cases on their own, let them proceed. Otherwise, we'll be discouraging people from doing things that they ought to do because they would be branded as working for the government of the day. So, my brother, nobody is having a vendetta against those judges. Let them face things there. But as for Lenaola and Dari, it is very difficult for me to make any serious comment because Tuju is a very close friend of mine, and so is Lenaola. I don't know how.
So you have personal interest?
There are people I know very closely, so I don't want to say much about them. I will not be objective.
No, it's okay. You can be subjective. Well, I don't want to put you in a tight corner, but let's go to a subject that where you'll be objective. Mm-hmm. In the 2027 presidential elections, it's very clear that we have three powerful politicians who will move the needle in a particular direction. Number one is Mr. Rigathi Gachagua. You may not like him, but he's got the gifts of gab. He does very well in propaganda. And when he wakes up in the morning and he stretches his arms, anauliza leo president anafanya nini, and then his capacity for propaganda is extremely high. Then there is retired President Kenyatta and Mr. Raila Odinga. Without giving us a thesis, what do you see the roles of especially President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga if they take a decision to say endorse President William Samoei Ruto, or they take a decision to endorse a candidate who is not William Samoei Ruto? Say if they decide on Fred Matiang'i, how do you see the electoral outcomes coming out?
First of all, I don't see Kenyatta endorsing President William Ruto. President William Ruto's biggest problem is the Kikuyu community. Those are things that people rarely say. It's only me who can say that.
You have the guts to say that.
Yes. You know, let me tell you something. When we were fighting the colonialists, we were all talking about liberation. And true, we liberated ourselves from the colonial powers and gave ourselves a constitution and followed it throughout Kenyatta's 14 years in office without anybody from the mountain talking about liberating Kenya from Kenyatta. Despite that during Kenyatta, people like J.M. Kariuki died, Tom Mboya died, nobody was talking about liberation. When Moi came, even a nursery school kid knew about liberation. It was liberation and counter-liberation. Some even had coups against him. And when Moi went out and Kibaki came in, the word liberation disappeared from the dictionaries. We went, then came Uhuru. There was no liberation despite the deaths in Rivayala, the cases where we would even go and change laws in parliament when the election is only weeks away. Nobody talks about liberation. The disobeying of court orders. Nobody talks about liberation. Come in President William Ruto. Even Karua has rebranded his party to Liberation Party. Liberating who from who? This President William Ruto you see here was elected by the very people who are now talking liberation. Even Gachagua, I am sure, voted for President William Ruto. Well, and he has another chance to vote for him out. So this liberation talk is outdated and unwanted in this country today. We are liberating who from who?
I mean, you don't have time for
once you have
liberation.
liberated yourself from colonial powers, and now you have a constitution that has been very well revised to 2010 one, the one even Noordean is describing as a constitution that keeps all politicians in check. What is this liberation we are talking about? Who are we liberating from?
Economic liberation.
Economic liberation, let's do it in the economic corridors, not here in politics. So you cannot form a political party and tell us you are liberating Kenyans from a sitting president, and you come here telling me it's economic liberation. Tell Karua, the days of liberation is all gone.
But
in fact, I was laughing because he even discarded the color of his beautiful flower from red to purple. Purple, you know, is a flower that is almost drying. The one that has been rejected in the market, they normally dry and turn purple.
Actually, in the Catholic Church, those colors are used for funerals.
Yes, so this idea of liberation, the only problem is many of these people have been captured, including the Gen Zs. They have been captured by the propaganda and counter-propaganda. They listen to the media and they take whatever comes out of the media as gospel truth. None of them has even wondered why the media reports the way they do.
So, Owidi, before you go further, would you say that South Africa is liberated?
Yes, it is.
They have a political party called Economic Liberation.
Of course, if the party had been registered those days when they were doing liberation, we can't deregister it because the liberation is complete. It just remained there. You know, there was a man called Museveni. He had a political party, NRM, NRA, those ones. 34 years after he liberated Uganda, he still has those parties. So those parties will remain. But to form a party today and go telling Kenyans that now you are going to liberating Kenyans from what?
Are you saying this because she did not invite you for a lunch?
I have never taken Martha Karua seriously. Do you know this Martha Karua was the DP of Raila Odinga? Even Apo Gichugu, hakuna MCA moja na Azimio. Do you know Uhuru Kenyatta was the chief sponsor of Raila Odinga in his Azimio? Ichaweri hakuna hata MCA moja na Azimio. There was a time that Jaramogi was running for the presidency and he had Paul Moeti and those people.
George Nyanja.
They never brought any votes. So to come here and pretend that those people can support anybody other than one of their own to bring these votes is to sleep for far too long. Wake up.
Mwangale, you're a lawyer with lots of interest in politics. When we discuss democracy, and in a country like Kenya, you've got about 10 political players. You can then name them. Start from President Ruto, you come to former President Kenyatta, you come to now Rigiji, you come to Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula. So you've got a group of about 10 political players who in every election decide the outcome of an election. Would you actually describe Kenyan as a democracy? Would you describe the average Kenyan voter as being aware of the democratic process? Or we are just seated under a mango tree waiting for politicians to take a decision for us?
I think when the rest of the world was being given ingredients of democracy, we were given the ingredients, we disappeared into the kitchen, and we came out with something that wasn't democracy. I would call what we have a political autocracy. We have a scenario where these specific individuals dominate politics as we know it. So we can't speak about politics without mentioning Raila Odinga. We can't speak about politics now without mentioning Uhuru Kenyatta, without mentioning William Ruto. The others who were gathered at Martha Karua's function, and again, the unfortunate bit is that these political parties are just individuals. Raila Odinga is ODM. You remove Raila Odinga from ODM, that may no longer be a party, and people will scramble out of ODM. You remove Martha Karua from now what is known as PLP, there will be no party. You remove Eugene Wamalwa from DAP, there is no party. You remove Kalonzo Musyoka from Wiper, it's the same thread across board. It is unfortunate because political parties are supposed to be the handmaidens of democracy. It is through political parties that people express opinion, people agitate for what they believe in around governance and politics. But our case is a sad one because in 2013, it was certain regions ganging up against one or two regions or one or two individuals. In 2022, Mount Kenya was ganging up to punish Uhuru Kenyatta. The yellow fever that swept across Mount Kenya was not so that Mount Kenya benefits in any particular way. It was so that Uhuru Kenyatta is taught a lesson. And indeed, he was taught a lesson. We are now seeing the conversation shifting again from William Ruto, the savior that Mount Kenya had seen.
The Messiah.
Now, exactly. Now he will be slung to the cross because he has, quote unquote, betrayed one of their own. One of the things I laugh about is the fact that Rigathi Gachagua has audience. I believe Rigathi Gachagua is a spent cartridge that is still, just spinning. But a cartridge that has left.
You're making Owidi happy. He may end up enjoying his coffee.
Like a cartridge that has left the gun, it can just spin for a little while. It is hot, and after some time, it goes cold. And I think such individuals should not be given audience. And it's not to say that Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto are any different. They are cut from the same cloth. But unfortunately, we have a culture, and I think if Wathogs were given a voice, they would really laugh at us. The proverbial Kasongos, the original Kasongo was given a voice, they would laugh at us because we have a very short memory. We have forgotten what...
Shorter than Wathogs?
Short, I tell you. Wathogs can run a few meters. We don't even run. We just mark time. We have forgotten what Rigathi Gachagua did in his time. We forgot what William Ruto has been doing. And it has carried us through. We forgot about William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. We voted them in 2013. We are now forgetting who these politicians are. Even those who are ganging up and saying William Ruto should go, they have massive skeletons in their closets. So for me, I would love it if we were not discussing these individuals, but unfortunately we have to because they still command some sway in the political space. Towards 2027, even before 2027, Uhuru Kenyatta has been said to be funding certain groupings. When Rigathi Gachagua went and prostrated himself, we hear before Uhuru Kenyatta and his family for the atrocities he had committed after the elections, we hear that he was forgiven. And so we are likely to see Uhuru Kenyatta funding that faction of Mount Kenya. We are also likely to see Raila Odinga step away from William Ruto effectively. It might be before 2027, but Raila Odinga will not support William Ruto in 2027. People forget again that Raila Odinga is very good at politics of survival. We were laughing about AUC the other day, but we also forgot that the position that Raila Odinga was serving in, the AU High Representative for Infrastructure, was not a position that existed before 2018. It was set up in 2018. Set up specifically and negotiated specifically for the individual that took that position.
For Mr. Raila Odinga.
For Mr. Raila Odinga. It was set up in 2018 after the negotiations that happened with Uhuru Kenyatta, and he was given the position. Flash forward to 2024, another position which unfortunately he did not get. But this cyclic politics that I think I find it a little mediocre. If you compare us to democracies that we want to ape, democracies that we want the development of Singapore without their politics. We want the development of the US without their politics. We want, the fast forwardness and grit of China without their culture.
South Korea.
So we must, if we want change, and to answer Owidi was asking liberation from what? Liberation from neo-colonialists, liberation from imperialists, liberation from economic subjugators, and which this political class belongs to. So I believe that we still need liberation. Unfortunately, the people who are now coming out as the liberators are not liberators, they are collaborators. And I think Kenyans should shun them completely.
In the interest of clarity, and because you're a lawyer, you have no problems with libel and slander, who are these collaborators that Mura needs to run away from?
I've mentioned a few of them. When Martha Karua comes out and says, these people are not good for you, she has been part of the system. When Eugene Wamalwa comes out to say, William Ruto is doing this, Eugene Wamalwa was part of Uhuru Kenyatta's government and complicit in the ills of Uhuru Kenyatta's government. When Kalonzo Musyoka comes out to tell us, there is nothing they're telling us that is true. They're just mentioning, a few things that may be right. And I think they have now known that the country is slowly moving away from William Ruto. At least the support that William Ruto had in 2022 is slowly moving away from him. And they are now fashioning themselves to be with the people when truly they are not.
Now, Noordean, from what Mwangale has indicated, one would comfortably say that everybody who attended the Martha Karua launch, they do not offer any new ideas. They are not liberators because they don't even understand the concept of liberation. That they've been part and parcel of the system. That in fact they may not offer a solution. The problem from your crystal ball, which most of the time is broken. Do you see any new political faces? Of course, I'm kidding. Do you see any new political faces for the presidential race in 2027?
First and foremost, I told you Trump will be president and he's president.
So the crystal ball.
Actually, I had an invitation to attend the launch. The SG happens
for Donald Trump.
No. For Karua.
For Karua.
The SG happens to be a very good friend of mine. The SG, but I didn't go. Reasons best known.
Because there were no biscuits? Or?
No, reasons best known to me. I just didn't go, but I wish them well. Where do we start? First and foremost...
Start from the beginning.
First and foremost, I do subscribe in the school of thought that we do need liberation. Liberation is an ongoing process. And economic liberation is globally. That is why you have Zelensky borrowing for money. And he's told you have to wear a suit. Beggars must be... You cannot be a beggar and a chooser. If you're told to have a suit at the Oval Office before you get money, you just wear a suit.
Well, Elon Musk doesn't need money, so he checks in a t-shirt.
Thank you. And so at the end of the day, I asked myself, if he goes through that, what do our African leaders in buses go through behind closed doors? What are they told? Because we don't have cameras when they're speaking, So I do believe we do need economic liberation, political liberation, because you have the same faces, the old Kanu boys. who just keep changing parties after parties. That is why he rightfully says, our parties don't have ideals. They vest on a particular person. That is why they are most of the time vehicles. I saw ODM celebrating 20 years. Congratulations to them. You know, if Raila would have been president, ODM would be dead by now. It's the truth of the matter. Look at all the parties that have assumed office. They end up dying once they capture power. And since they never work, they never fulfill the manifesto, they rebrand. You know, Kenyans are crazy about euphoria, razzmatazz, a new color, a new party. So they jump in there, courtesy of rebranding. Now people are rebranding to come up with new credentials that will fit a political purpose. Now every party is speaking about, time for us to incorporate the young people, the Gen Z, Chukueni Kura. This launch speaks about the same thing. When you listen to Gachagua, that's what he's talking about. But my question is, before they fell out of the president, that wasn't in your mind? You see, it's more or less a way of trying to get new credentials and act like, we're people-centric. But at the end of the day, you're the same people. And that is why it is so sad that I see young people who are aspiring to be leaders being told the only way you learn about politics is when you join these so-called parties that they will hold your hand and work with you. They will corrupt your morals at the end of the day because they do not stand for liberation. It is more about self-enrichment and survival. He spoke about Raila. Now Raila is talk of town. Everybody wants Raila. Even Gachagua anamwambia masaa ni mbaya, tuambie kuna sisi ama uko huko. He has survived. He's a political animal. When people were laughing about the EU is over, he's now moving around saying, I'm consulting. Little do we know, maybe he already has an agreement with the president. But now he's moving around saying, I'm consulting.
He's probably consulting himself.
What he's doing, he's raising his bargaining chips, at the end of the day. He's saying, I have to meet. Today is in Mombasa. He was in Mombasa before he went to Kisumu. He didn't consult when he was there. So at the end of the day, it's political gimmicks. And I do believe, you just mentioned of a party that I really had high hopes on, and I still hope they get their act together. That is EFF. I've had the opportunity to speak to some of their leaders and some commissaries. It is unfortunate that a party was formed on the 26th of July 2013, when those leaders were expelled from ANC, the Youth League. When they came together, they were fighting for economic freedom in their lifetime. All right? It is unfortunate that we see they have ended up parting ways, like Nlozi has left, Floyd has left. So, and that is what happens most of the time. Selfish interests.
And the margins are going south during the last election.
Exactly. And now you have DA and ANC as one thing. Can you imagine? DA and ANC. Can you just imagine? And you're talking about liberation. You see, at the end of the day, we all fought the imperialists so that we can control our politics, we can control our economy. But to date, as Oburu Odinga would say, not yet Uhuru. We are not yet free because the imperialists still controls our movement, our politics, our land, and our economy. So how are you free? Liberation is a must at the end of the day. And most of these quote-unquote leaders that you have are puppets. That's why they're put in buses. You see, how you're a leader of a sovereign country and some things, man, you even ask yourself and you wonder. So at the end of the day, I do believe that we have a long way to go. And just because someone launched their party and call it something liberation doesn't mean, and if they don't fit the credentials, that doesn't mean liberation should not be there. Because at the end of the day, I do believe that we have a very long way to go. And the first step is getting rid, not by any violence, but get rid of all these old guards who are part and parcel of the problem, who tell you have to go through them, so they educate you on the way forward. It really doesn't change anything.
But do you see any new names that would fit the ticket for presidential candidates?
I wouldn't take a bullet for anyone. I wouldn't.
Yeah, please don't.
Unless I'm taking my own bullet, So at the end of the day, I don't know. For now, it's still early, but these faces that we have that have been there for 20, 30 years are not the solution. Because whenever something goes wrong, they revert to their tribal cocoons. The sad reality. Now we're being told, you see how parties are being formed. When Raila started the consultations, where did he go to? His
village.
Thank you. So how is that part and parcel of liberation? How is that part and parcel of taking us forward? Actually, I'm consulting with you. Today he's saying that all those who were killed, courtesy of the demonstrations, must be compensated. When you met with Ruto to form a broad-based government, you didn't tell him that?
This time around, you haven't said bread-based. So it means you've also had a Damascus moment.
I just mentioned the name of bread. So at the end of the day, you didn't tell him that. So again, I tell you, it's fake, and it's their way of trying to endear themselves to the people. But I believe the people need to wake up. As he says, the goldfish memory needs to go away. You have to realize that these people do anything to survive there. They do anything to maintain that stature they have or status they have. So at the end of the day, we need to rise above their lies. Unless we do so, we'll continue being their meal ticket, which is so sad. Because ask yourself this, we had Sufuria Maandamanos, right? So many people died. Nothing has happened. Before that, there were under Maandamanos. Nothing happens. People get into government and they forget about that. The Gen Z died. Nothing happened. We only have one cop who's now having a court case ongoing. And so now you come and remind the parents who lost their children, oh, by the way, how will you be compensated when you're the same person? It doesn't make sense. So I do believe we have to liberate our country. And you see, for me, when I say this, I come from the school of thought of Thomas Sankara. And that is why I believe the leaders that we have do not fit to take us to where Kenya has to go to.
Now, talking about leadership, Kevin Owidi, you know, Kevin is your confirmation name as a Catholic. Yeah, but the people who attended the Martha Karua's launch, did you see any person who has organized himself to take President Ruto head on 2027?
You know, the problem we have in Africa or Kenya, to be very specific, when we don't like somebody, we want to remove him. We even go to an extent that we can even replace him with a dog. We normally say that. I wonder how these people expect that these people who are running around besmirching the president are capable of doing better than him. They are not. Just the other year here, the statements Rigathi was making were unacceptable. But before I continue with that line of thought, there was a statement that was made by Mwangale that I need to put correctly. He said that the yellow fever swept Mount Kenya to punish Uhuru. No. The yellow fever swept Mount Kenya to reject Raila Odinga. And actually, immediately after that election, the Maandamanos that you saw, they were sponsored by the Uhuru Kioni axis. They were the ones who were underwriting those things.
Can you repeat this before the Supreme Court?
Any court, and I will give, and I will give them evidence. So these people who are talking about those people who attended Karua's launch, they also attended the DAPK launch. When you hear them, they have no policies they are selling. They have no good governance ideas they are selling. All they are selling is Ruto must go. And if you tell them, tell me one...
Ruto must go is not a policy.
Maybe that is their policy. And when you ask them, what is this that Ruto has done that is different from what Uhuru, Kibaki, Moi, and Jomo Kenyatta did? There is nothing. Today you find people walking, people who are unable to distinguish between Sheikh, Shah, and all those, and are talking and saying it is not working.
Including Noordean. And they are saying they are not working, and they are saying they are not working. when they shift thing, it is not a service provider, it is an underwriter.
But no one has said Chief is a service.
So when you come and say it is not working, what do you mean?
The underwriter is not working. Yes. There's no man.
No. Somebody, and you know what they do? They go to hospital. He has not even registered. Then, when they are unable to give him services, he comes running back. It is not working.
But the president has admitted as well.
It is not working. It is because they don't understand what it is all about. Instead of us understanding it, before they come home complaining, they come running that it is not working. It is, and it is working much better than
Noordean would accept
than the original lonely NHIF. Now we are even going to get people who are going to be treated without contributing a cent at primary healthcare level. So let us also give it. Now, when you look at one of the reasons why Ruto became largely unpopular, and it was all a lie, that Ruto has increased taxes. But what did Uhuru do? The trick Uhuru did was, when the fuel was rising to 250 per litre, he went to the consolidated fund, got our money, gave us subsidies, and you are clapping. Not knowing that our debts are rising. When unga was 250, what does he do? He gave the miller subsidy, and we are buying unga at 100 bob, and you are clapping. But when a brilliant man like President William Ruto comes home and says, you people, you have borrowed money, and the collateral is your country. To save your country, let us deny ourselves the luxuries and then pay this debt and have a free country. And that is the true liberation. See, Yakarwa. Yakarwa is not liberation. In any case, if you are liberating people who do not even know what jail they are in, you will not liberate them. They have to know we are in jail, and this is the jail we are in, and this is the door out. Then you can liberate them. Lakini hawa watu, hata wajui hiyo jail, all they know is our man is talking. Our tribesman is speaking. He's saying their tribesman is a bad man. I think we are getting it all wrong.
Now, talking about the president, you said that President Ruto, a brilliant man, came in and offered subsidies for production instead of consumption.
Yes.
Would you say that in the last 2.5 years, he's not made any mistake in his administration, that all the decisions have been
He
stellar?
has not made any mistake, but his detractors have decided that anything he tries to do, even treating a sick cow, is wrong. You know, vaccination is to prevent diseases. And in the Middle East and Europe, when you export meat, it has to go through serious tests. And that is the only what we are going to prevent by doing vaccination. But what happens? People come and say it is a wrong thing to do, sijui Bill Gates, sijui what, and all of us agree with it. Kwani tumerogwa sisi wa Kenya?
No, kuna mtu amerogwa
We
mwingine.
just told anything in
Now, Kevin Owidi, talking about Nairobi's growing influence, let's look at some statistics. Nairobi has got more than 120 diplomatic missions. This compares to 60 in Tanzania and 134 in South Africa. These are desktop research. And Kenya's got probably the highest concentration of media houses and correspondents in sub-Saharan Africa.
Correct.
Probably larger than South Africa. And then BBC has got a big office in Nairobi. The JKE is a regional aviation hub. It's got 39 airlines operating from JKE, going to 64 destinations. Nairobi has got one of the biggest offices of Bretton Woods institution. And for the interest of Noordean, Bretton Woods here means IMF and World Bank. Of course, I'm kidding. And then we've got a session of paper on foreign policy, which Musalia Mudavadi has consulted everybody. And when Musalia Mudavadi recently was in Geneva, the UN Office for the Commission for the Human Rights have actually said they want to establish an office in Nairobi, a multi-country, to look at issues. Now, that is one aspect. The second aspect is that our neighbors in the region, when they want to speak to their audiences back at home, they come to Nairobi. Like, for instance, when Tshisekedi wanted to run for president, he came to Serena. A few days ago, when people are doing demonstrations against President Museveni, they came to Nairobi. You've had people from, we had South Sudan in Machakos. You've got Sudan in Nairobi a few days ago, which has raised eyebrows. So it seems that the 2010 Constitution has made Kenya a regional center. Even when you're talking about education, understand that Kenyan education is highly regarded across the world. What do you make of this position to get the UN to have the human rights office outside Geneva, New York, located in Nairobi?
It's purely out of Kenya's stability, not necessarily our loss. And foreign policies largely depends on who is in the seat of power. Even if you have one written in gold, bound very well, when a new president comes, they have to be varied one way or the other. You will start seeing who is really close to, who is not close to, things that are happening. Actually, you remember when President William Ruto got into office, he was embraced right from South Africa to the United States. The only thing that has really dragged him back is this conspiracy that his deputy brought in to assemble what they call Gen Zs to establish his government. You know, the foreigners, what they look at, they look back at what the local media is reporting and they say, this is what is happening in Kenya. If you are unfortunate like President William Ruto that you have a very partisan media, you are in trouble. You remember those many letters that were written to, was it to The Hague? Petitions against President William Ruto. Do you know that thing was planned? And the people who were writing them were being selected and told to write and what to write. And those people think, oh, Kenyans are really writing out here. This thing was very well planned. But I want people who are learned and educated to tell us, what is this that President William Ruto has done differently from the past 3 to 4 presidents? Nothing. The only difference is that President William Ruto is a Kalenjin. And is not acceptable to the majority of those people because of his tribe, nothing else.
Is that a statement of fact?
It's a fact. It's very factual.
But Owidi said he wants the people who are learned to tell him.
And you consider yourself being a learned friend. Because you're a learned friend, that's how you step in.
We can offer.
Yes, Mwangale,
and say that yes, William Ruto has not done anything different from what the other presidents has done. And the reason I say that is this, that while other presidents have looted this country, William Ruto has also looted. Mm-hmm. While other presidents have superintended over human rights abuses, William Ruto has done the same. While other presidents have ostracized certain communities, William Ruto has done the same. While other presidents have not been keen enough to, give or to champion economic prosperity, William Ruto has done the same. The speck in the neighbor's eye usually appears larger than the log in one person's eyes. And I've heard Owidi say of Trump that Trump, it was unfortunate that the US elected Trump, who is a businessman, looks only at what comes.
Real estate guy.
But on the other hand, he's calling William Ruto a brilliant leader. But they are cut from the same cloth. While Trump was a businessman from times past, William Ruto is also a businessman.
To date.
All these projects we are seeing, nothing is signed off without William Ruto getting his share.
Are you talking about state capture?
You need your opinion.
Of course, yeah, it is a learned opinion.
That's requested.
That's requested. So William Ruto is not different from the other presidents because they are cut from the same cloth. Politicians who are out to impoverish, and while they might appear in harambes, appear in church services, in funerals, and tell us, we want to unite this country. That is what they are saying. But what they do is totally different. I have mentioned before that William Ruto has now become a master political ventriloquist. Those people who appear with, they have a puppet in their hand, and you are misdirected to think that the voice you are hearing is coming from the puppet in the hand, yet the person is actually speaking. And that is how William Ruto operates. He's not a unique figure in politics. Raila Odinga operates the same way. Uhuru Kenyatta operated the same way. All these politicians operated the same way. But back to the question of Nairobi and Kenya. And I agree with Owidi that Kenya stabilized much earlier. Uganda had problems right up to 86, 88 when the National Resistance Army of Museveni took over. Tanzania was not economically viable as a regional hub. Sudan, as it then was, had issues, Somalia, and all our neighbors. So we were the well-off cousin, if I may use that terminology. But increasingly, because of that position, you have had international actors, setting up base here, whether they were setting up base for the good of the continent or not, because we've had, certain actors operating from here, but interfering with Somalia, operating from here, interfering with Sudan, interfering with Congo, and so on. But we have also been a refuge for our neighbors. There was a time when Somalia's government was formed right here in Nairobi.
And domicile in Isili.
Exactly. Now, there's a government that Kenya
RSF
is supporting that has been formed here in Nairobi again. South Sudan, the same thing has happened in South Sudan. So we are a refuge to the region. But although that is increasingly being eroded because of the shifty foreign policy, if at all we should call it foreign policy, the way we interact with our neighbors is slowly eroding the trust they have in us. We have now a culture of interference. I was speaking to somebody, I think just today, we were talking about some peacekeepers, somebody who was part of peacekeepers in Morocco. And this is what Kenya was known for. We were known for peacekeeping. If you go to certain places in this country, you'd find settlements that have names of certain cities and regions across the continent, because soldiers who came from peacekeeping missions then settled there. It is testament to the position we occupied. The reason why you would find now these international institutions and agencies setting camp here is because Kenya is a peaceful base, not because they are coming here to benefit the country, but Kenya is a peaceful base to fly out of if you are going to Somalia, which is very volatile.
Of the aviation hub.
Exactly. If you're going to Sudan, if you're going to Congo, we are in that position. So I'm very hesitant to celebrate those inroads, because they then position us against our neighbors.
But not speaking from a lawyer's perspective, going by the 2010 constitution,
yes,
if people from, say, DRC come to Kenya and they want to address their audience back at home, from Sudan, South Sudan, from Somalia, even Tindilusu from Tanzania, if they're coming to Kenya to address their voters back at home, if they're coming to Kenya to form their civil societies, if they're coming to Kenya to form demonstrations, is there anything wrong in them doing so if they do not, they're not in breach of our constitution, if it's not a criminal offense? Should you be worried that, say, if RSF comes to town and they want to do a news conference somewhere, that it may interfere with state-to-state relationship, but while in fact they're not in breach of any laws in Kenya?
We are just a collection of villages. Kenya is a village, Uganda, they're just crossing a village boundary and, coming to Nairobi. While there's nothing, manifestly wrong in that, if, for example, you have individuals who are subverting democratically elected government, and they are conducting their operations in Nairobi with the support of our government, then that is a cause for concern. But if they're just doing that as citizens who have come to this country, citizens of other countries who have come to this country, they have a right. They have a right to exercise their freedoms, because when they come into the country, they are subjecting themselves to the laws of this country, and the laws of this country, beginning with the 2010 Constitution, guarantee certain freedoms that cannot be violated just because we do not agree with them.
Now, Noordean, you're celebrated as a mediation expert. So is there anything wrong if people from, say, Sudan, they say we are unhappy with the status quo, let's go and organize ourselves in Nairobi? If Tundulisu has survived what he described as assassination attempts in Tanzania, he comes to Nairobi Hospital, a celebrated hospital in Kenya, he's treated, and in the process of recovery does a news conference. Should Nairobi be afraid that what an opposition politician says in Kenya may compromise our relationship with their host countries?
You spoke about mediation, and mediation wants a facilitator that is impartial. From how this thing has occurred, it seems like we are partisan. We favor one party, and if you look at the statements that come out after some blunders that are done in Nairobi, it shows you that clearly we are partisan. And it shows that during those meetings, if they are boardroom meetings with different parties, we lie to them, tuko na wewe. Our foreign policy ni kama ile kuja tuongea tuwezi kosana. It's like you're tricking both of them, trying to play both of them. It can never work. It will backfire on you at the end of the day, and that's what is happening. He says we're meddling. Yes, we last time I was here, I told you, Manchester United, a team I love and support, we used to call Man City fans noisy neighbors. Us Kenyans now we look like nosy neighbors because we're in everybody's business while our own house has issues.
But you've raised a fundamental point about meddling. Is there actually anything wrong in meddling if it serves Kenya's national and public interest?
So which interest is that? When these two factions are fighting, each claiming to be the government of a particular area. So when you support one, what do you mean then?
Let's take the example of South Sudan. Sorry, Sudan. You don't have a democratically elected administration. All of them are military generals. So there's nobody who would say that has got the popular mandate to lead. All of them came to power through a coup.
Yes.
And it's in Kenya's interest, one would assume, to have a democratic government in Sudan. So if one group says that let's go to Nairobi so that we can form our party there, there's a high concentration of media, their constitution allows us to speak our mind without checking on who is checking on your back. Is there anything wrong in that?
If they're coming, as you say, to speak, to talk about their issues, no problem. But if you're coming to form a parallel government, that in itself is wrong at the end of the day.
Does that contravene the Kenyan constitution?
It actually means, it puts us in a very tight spot internationally. So at the end of the day, we are saying that none of them is a legitimate government, right? And then we decide who we feel is legitimate by giving one an avenue to form a government.
No, you're telling you're not even telling them that.
We're discussing.
They just know that if you go to Nairobi, you will address all the international media, you'll get everything. Now, if you're talking about meddling, then you'd also accuse Donald Trump of the same, because he's telling Zelensky, sign this mineral deal. If you don't do this, I'm not supporting you anymore.
Yes, but that's the US. That's what they do. So are we trying to be them? Just because that doesn't mean it's right at the end of the day.
You said as a mediation expert, you're trying to dodge a bullet. Can we meddle if the consequences serve our national and public interest?
Here's the thing. You bring about mediation. You cannot mediate without one party. What are you mediating? Both parties have to be there.
Talks before the talks.
Listen, both parties have to be there. Yes, you can have them in break rooms. Now, if one party has decided they do not want you as a facilitator, do you impose yourself as a facilitator? You don't. You recuse yourself. The same way, if I go before court and he knows, and I feel this judge isn't impartial, ask him or her to recuse themselves. And they do it. So if they have told us, we do not see you, if one party says you're not impartial, we want you to step aside, and we insist, then clearly we are siding with one party.
Now, last time you indicated that if you get an invitation to State House, you would decline. But what if you get an invitation to offer an advisory opinion on the RSF matter and the meetings in Nairobi?
I still don't have a PhD, so he won't listen to me. Here's it.
I think there are two things. There is what we call diplomacy, and there is what we call meddling, as you're rightly putting it. There is proper and good-mannered meddling, which is now called diplomacy. And
there
so
you go.
you would make some inroads in South Sudan, for example, have some talks, with certain individuals, but it is not pronounced because you are doing it diplomatically, to use that term. So our meddling is such that we are outrightly supporting an outfit that is anti-government. So, for example, if we say hosted the National Unity Platform of Uganda, they are manifestly against the government of Museveni. It's an opposition party. So we hosted the NUP in Nairobi, allowed them to make.
Okay, did you host them or they came to Nairobi?
No, we hosted them.
They were guests of the state.
They were, and the reason I'm saying they were, I'm privy to some information that I will not share, but
which you already shared. That's okay.
Yes, but they were, and looking at the kind of support they got from the state, the kind of security they got from the state, the kind of logistical support they received from the government of Kenya. They were not receiving this from certain politicians or certain individuals. They received this support from the government of Kenya, and we had a statement. An overt statement that came from Ministry of Foreign Affairs acknowledging their presence and what they are doing in this country. That is taking a side in a conflict in Sudan. We are not engaging a government. We are taking a side in a protracted conflict in Sudan. It's a gamble. So what if the RSF is not the ultimate winner in that conflict? What if they go back or they don't go back at all? And now there is a legitimate government that takes over in Sudan. And we have seen the head of the SAF issuing some veiled threats to Kenya. Well, he's issuing it to William Ruto, but it's to the country, saying William Ruto has taken a path, they hope that he knows the consequences. So that is a kind of meddling that is not acceptable, even in international law. It is not a meddling that is acceptable to the country, because we are putting ourselves at risk. We already, it's like we are declaring war on, a faction of Sudan's government, which is, I think, something that should not have escaped our diplomatic corps in Kenya.
I was saying something before I forget it. You see, he raised an issue when he said when the president took over.
Owidi.
Yes, everybody accepted him from the south. Happy. You see, the truth of the matter is, before the Gen Z Mandamanos last year.
He might have meant South Rift.
You see, before the that's a good one. Before the Mandamanos, what happened is the president was a poster boy for the West, and they were trying to elevate him to look like some sort of this brilliant, new, fresh of breath air leader from Africa that would lead the West Quest in Africa. And that is why he went to, he was in South Africa at that parliament. He spoke about, we have to leave the dollar, we have to unite, open borders and everything. When he left, he comes and rolls the carpet for an imperialist. And he speaks totally different. That is why my good friend Juju, or you call him Julius, when he was in Kenya, he said, I'm trying to locate this president. During the day, he's a Pan-Africanist. At night, he dines with imperialists. So what does he stand for? And that is the question. You see, so it shows how we run even our foreign policy. That's why I told you, maybe
that is strategic ambiguity.
It is not, because at the end of the day, there are consequences, as he tells you. There are going to be consequences. Because at the end of the day, you're not too smart for everyone. Yes, he claimed he's brilliant. And before I forget, he mentioned thing about fuel and the consolidation fund. This president came up with G2G, which has failed. And there is money that is meant to be paid. So how brilliant is that? So when he says nothing has changed, as Mwangale says nothing has changed, he has just maintained the status quo. It's just that maybe what was happening before, he's gone a notch higher.
I hope you're registering for your PhD. So, Owidi, can we have the last word on this?
This RSF, SAF thing, I think we are cheapening international relations. Even in this country, if today we see Karoa and Raila greeting each other at the airport, we will read too much into it. When RSF came here to this country, nobody stopped SAF also to come, even thereafter. Nothing. Because if you want to be a good arbiter, if you ask me to come and you are fighting with the Noordean, I will listen to you. If tomorrow he says, let me also come, you listen to me, I will listen to you. And if President William Ruto told RSF, I know you want to come, don't come, they will also think that the president is supporting the other faction. I don't have to be your enemy because you are a friend of my enemy. I think that is a poor way of looking at it.
Yeah, let me just stop you in the middle and ask you that when, say, RSF or SAF are coming to Kenya, do they need authorization from anybody to come to Kenya?
They can even come as on their individual capacities. Nothing stops them from coming that way. And we have no official communication of this is what they agreed with the president of Kenya to go and do or not to go and do. And also remember, RSF is the one controlling the capital Khartoum, not SAF. So these people who are talking and telling us that, you know the consequences, and they are unable to deal with their own opponents. How will they now deal with Kenya? And they have been thrown out of the capital. So wasitutishe. But anyway, wait a minute. Hii mambo ya kuwawacha mnaingia tu vile mnataka mtawacha. Nyamaza.
Umekuwa RSF.
No. Sijakuwa RSF. But you see, I also want to make a comment about how President Uhuru Kenyatta handled the 2013 and 2017 riots. Because I heard Noordean talk about people who were killed during the Maandamano. And then, do you know, during this time, government operatives literally ran over a crowd on Uhuru Highway. I'm sure you watched it. The policemen were not waiting for the rioters to come onto Ngong Road. They were in Kibera at their doorsteps. They were in Mathare waiting for them there. And it was a very ruthless thing. Even those who died, baby Pendo, they were killed right at their doorsteps. Wachana na hawa walikufa wakati wa Ruto who died in the streets, looting and destroying property. Hii maandamano ya Raila, these people died in the streets, in the battle. Uhuru killed these people right in their houses. Where did baby Pendo die? Where did the Mathare guy die? Right in the corridors of his house. He did not even get out there to come and riot in town. And these people did not come out to tell us that Uhuru must go, to tell us that he's a bad man like they are telling Ruto. These people here, you see here, Mwangale and Noordean and all these other people, they have been captured by the Kikuyu propaganda.
Maybe they were still in law school.
And they don't know. One day you will know that is a propaganda.
But we can.
And you know what they did? They first captured the media. You know. Today, I was being told. I was asking these people, what happened to me and Royal Media? They told me the Royal Media told us that you said you don't want to go there anymore, and I didn't say so. It is only that they don't like what I will tell them.
But is that a fair statement about Royal Media?
It is very fair because they have told many people. I've been sent there a few times and they say, no. Owidi had said he can never come to Royal Media. And that was, they know is a lie.
That is personal.
Yeah, but again, how do we establish that that is the state of affairs?
You don't have to establish. Just call it. I even have the recording. So don't joke. You know, sometimes when they call people, oh, Mwangale, you come to the station. Mwangale tells them, no. Today we are busy, but we are sending Owidi. No. Owidi said it can never come to Royal Media. That is what they say. But I know. You know,
as Mwangale said, you probably have personal issues with the group as a corporate body.
No.
Personalities.
The media houses were all captured. Look, take a newspaper only. Don't even go to the TV. And look at the way they report different cases. The ones that are pro-government and the ones that are anti. Did you see Standard today?
But we cannot.
Did you see in the Nation?
We cannot take
to an extent that the Nation reports that 1.3 trillion withdrawn in cash in 7 months.
Business Daily.
Let me also tell you something about. It was in the Nation also. I bought one, and let me also tell you what is Kenya's budget. That money has to be used. The only mistake there is probably so much of it did not go through the system. And this is requests that come from agencies, ministries, and county governments.
So why should
and the president is not the one to take responsibilities for them going against the PFM Act.
Now, Mwangale, you speak about some invitation. I think it's important to get that clarity. Yeah. Lest we ask you to represent us.
You see, when we may have some issues with how mainstream media is run, but we cannot take Owidi's non-invitation to Royal Media as the standard, determining whether the media.
What I said is what they said about my not going. It is not that they didn't invite me. They don't have to.
Then they might invite you very soon. But we can't say that.
You should have his mobile phone on.
We can't say that the media has been captured just because they have.
It was not invited.
No, I have told you how to find out. Just take the newspapers, put them on your table, and see how they report it.
It's fine. I must insist that I also have some qualms about how media has captured certain things, but I can't outrightly say that they have now been captured by
anti-Ruto forces.
There are instances where media has taken some editorial latitudes. They have gone against or called out certain actions of the Kenya Kwanza government. We can't then say they were captured by the opposition. So I think we must give the media the freedom to do what they need to do. The fact that we want them to carry a certain narrative is an attempt to capture the media.
Or invite Owidi.
I think there's a video I have. I will send it to you. This guy really talks nasty things about the president. When I walk in now to talk the same about Rigathi Gachagua, they are saying, no, you can't go that route. Rigathi is not here to defend himself. It is so obvious.
Now, let me defend yourself.
Let me say, he said that he and I he and I have been captured by the media. Let me state here.
Captured by the media?
Not captured.
Captured by propaganda.
Or propaganda.
Yes.
And captured by the Kikuyu. That's what he says.
Yes.
Let me state here categorically.
In black and white?
In black and white.
Without fear of contradiction?
Yes. I have not been captured. The beauty about me, that's why I told you I'll turn down that invitation. I have not
To State House or even Omunyoro.
And you see, he says, at where were we when who was doing what? The beauty about what we do, this.
We have been doing this.
You can always look for our videos. I was against BBI. And so many other things Uhuru was doing. If you check every single place we would meet without planning, if you look at what we spoke, I never supported what he was doing when he was president. I never supported the killings of demonstrators. I never did that. The same thing I will never support with this regime. So that issue of saying that, oh, Uhuru, when Uhuru was saying this, you guys were quiet or you're being captured. You see, this tribal narrative needs to end.
So Owidi owes you an apology?
Yeah, he should.
It cannot end when the media behaves the way they do.
Let me tell
How
you.
come the media didn't behave the same way they are behaving today when Uhuru was in power?
Now, let me tell you.
With you or with the Kenya Kwanza government?
With the Kenya, with Uhuru's government.
Let Noordean prosecute his point.
Let me tell you something. You see, this tribal narrative is old. It's archaic. That's why I'm telling you this old guard needs to disappear, because they are the only ones who run to that card whenever it suits.
Including Owidi.
I can see clearly. But whenever they have an agenda to push, let me tell you something. When we question the things the government does, it's not out of hate. I have nothing personal against the president.
Sort of love.
No, I can't love the man. Come on now. I have nothing personal against the president. You see, it's nothing personal. Because if he succeeds, I succeed at the end of the day. When we ask for accountability, now we are being told, hiyo 1.3 trillion, tisi ilipotea, kuna ingine ilitoka bila the right channel. That in itself is an illegality. What are we talking about? Why do we have parliament for? No. The other day, we are being told Treasury has a secret 78 something billion fund for doing what? When you listen to some of the amounts that get lost, if you listen to Auditor General, you ask yourself, the president has, the same president you're saying is brilliant, has gone into the consolidated fund. He has used it without authorization from parliament.
No.
So that
I think you believe the media too much.
No, it's true. When you see, let me tell you something. The beauty about this is there are records. You can always read the Auditor General.
But to come here and believe that 1.3 trillion is stolen, you know Kenya would collapse if it was. Kenya would collapse the same day.
During Kibaki's time, we were told that in ideal situation, a third of our budget gets lost.
Now,
and this same government, when they were with Uhuru, they have not told us whether they sealed the loopholes of 2 billion a day.
okay, now before we go to the controversial opinion, a gentleman here has posed a question to the lawyer. He's called Msaga Njuma, asking, saying good evening. Do you think there will be a constitutional amendment before the 2027 general elections? And how will these affect politics? Then Sami Ayoti says, Sudan does not have a democratically elected government. The Pan-African nation says Mbeki is one of the richest people in Sudan. As a leader, he goes on to give allegations. And then he says that Omondi was outside parliament with a flag on his neck and a mobile phone.
Owidi says that was the battlefront.
And later on, he was found at Aquarium. And then another gentleman called Mwangi says that for the first time today, Owidi is oozing wisdom. So I think Owidi, today you had your Damascus moment.
From Mwangi.
And Juma is asking whether Mwangale is interested in elective position. And a lady called Charlene, it's very complicated, is asking whether Noordean is single. Please go ahead and respond to those controversial opinions.
Before you respond to that, let me tell you something that I don't want to go away. Noordean is very happy and keen on dealing with tribalism. You cannot solve the tribalism disease in this country without calling it by name, without telling us when you see one. What brings Karwa, Rigathi, and Uhuru together? What brings them? Other than tribe, what has brought them together? Because these are people who are completely in different parties, fighting different wars, believing different... Suddenly they are together against President William Ruto. The only thing that is common about those three is their community. And if you don't mention these things by name, they will keep on lying to you that, oh, we are together because Ruto is a bad man. They are not together because Ruto is a bad man. They are together because they believe it is only them who can govern this country. This country belongs to all of us, and President William Ruto, if we think there's anything going wrong, we have laws in this country. Let us ensure that he follows the law to the end, and then when the election comes, we vote him in or out until we get another person. But these days, in fact, by now, Noordean should have decided who can possibly replace him. He has no idea. All he knows is Ruto is a bad man.
Now, before we go to the controversial opinions, between Mwangale and Noordean, who is senior in the bar?
Who is senior in the bar? Noordean is senior. Yeah, Noordean is senior.
I mean, we can get your LSK numbers, but anyway, we'll go with your grey hair. Please answer Msaga's question, whether we'll have a constitutional amendment before the 2027 general election.
Okay. I didn't see that.
I don't think we will have a constitutional amendment. There may be a push to have an amendment before 2027, but even the constitution itself has certain safeguards that prevent a constitutional amendment a certain period before an election. So that we may see certain attempts to have a constitutional amendment, but those attempts will not be attempts to bolster or improve the constitution. They will be selfish attempts because we have seen them in the past. I don't think we'll have a constitutional amendment. By amendment, I mean a referendum before 2027. That may not happen.
Yeah, thanks for that clarity. Do not expect a fee note. So, Noordean, your controversial statement. If you make it in 1 minute, we'll be very excited.
Let me just throw something in. You see, the reason why we can't have a referendum, because the president of the day is afraid of the people. That referendum will end up being a vote of no confidence against him. So he cannot dare have a referendum. There's a funny question there. The answer is the search ended a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, she indicates that you're Muslim, so the 4 slots are taken up. That would be the assumption. Go ahead with your controversial opinion.
My controversial opinion is if William Ruto is Superman, then Rigathi Gachagua is kryptonite. He is exactly what William Ruto needs. You see, the William Ruto that was the DP to Uhuru, now this is the same DP but without any filters. And I like the fact that he has formed a weapon against him that is actually working on him, because I do not subscribe to the school of thought of both people. I do not support them. And I do believe that their tenure was an error in this country. Unfortunately, it's a democratic practice. You decide you vote for whoever you want. But I do believe that their combination was an error. And the earlier it ends, the better. Now that one is remaining, people are saying, Ufadera Kumakanga, dereba libaki. So yake kwa hapo mbele at the end of the day. So I do believe that he will not win the war of words with Gachagua. Today Gachagua answered him and told him that why did you have 4 hours to listen to what we are saying? You see, that war, you lose that war. As you say, he just wakes up and he's like, what is he doing today? He's idle. And I do believe that deep down he knows impeaching Gachagua was a blunder. But to us, in as much as we know he spews propaganda, believe you me, every single propaganda or lie that Gachagua might tell us, there's some truth to it. So we do not see him as a savior or as a liberator. It's just that bosom buddies are now fighting, but cut from the same cloth. If he was still inside, he would be speaking differently. So I do believe, let them. You see, when your enemy is fighting, you don't stop the fight. Let them keep fighting.
Give them an energy drink.
Give them an energy drink so that once they are done, you get rid of both of them.
Mwangale, a controversial opinion.
First, what do you call a judge in Kisii? What is the Kisii name for?
Approximate is Omogambi.
Omogambi. Yeah. So my controversial or not so controversial statement is from our discussion today. Martha Koome is the Chief Justice of Kenya. He's not the Omogambi of Kisii. He's not the Omogadaki.
The Mwari
of Bungoma. He's not the Omulamuzi. She's the Chief Justice of Kenya. So if there is anything that touches on Martha Koome, It is not touching on an individual from Mount Kenya or an individual from Embu or Meru. It is touching on the Chief Justice of Kenya. And if by any chance there is a petition for the removal of Martha Koome, merited or not, it is a petition for the removal of the Chief Justice of Kenya, Martha Koome, who happens by chance to be, is it Mwembu or Meru? So this issue where an individual in public office is targeted for whatever reason by the law, and then it turns out that their community will now come out to support that person because they come from that community, is a culture of mediocrity that we need to step away from.
Kevin Owidi.
Great. You know, I have normally some very unpopular opinions. One of them is pending bills and salaries in counties, or even in the national government, should be the first charge on their monies, on the exchequer. Should be. Because those are bills. When we have debt nationally, that is normally the first charge. Counties have debts that have lasted 15 years. And they are Kenyans. Their businesses are collapsing while governors are wallowing in utmost luxury. We need a policy. If we cannot find a law, we have to make one in which any money owed to a businessman by the counties who provided services or goods should be the first charge before they think of doing anything. You see, the county owes somebody for building the governor's office. They are busy contracting another person to build the deputy governor's office when they have not paid the one who built the governor's office. And here are these people telling the electorate, you see, I have built the governor's house. I have built this. But the people who have actually built it are the businessmen who have built it without being paid. So that is something that we need to take very seriously in Kenya. If you want to liberate Kenya, the two of you, my learned friends, this is what you need. No, this is the war that you have to help this country fight. Another thing, the county should have a ceiling on employment. You find one county has 600 staff, another one has 200. Until the one which has 600 cannot even do anything, even build a toilet. Number 3, counties should not be buying things to distribute to citizens. Because this is what gives the politicians therein, beginning with the governor, an opportunity to bribe the people. Even this bursary that was left to them, it's only being used to be given to friends and relatives who are willing to support the governors. Government cannot be in the business of giving freebies like NGOs. They should provide an atmosphere that is good for business, that is good for education, that is good for healthcare. And finally, but equally important, people are assuming that President William Ruto made a mistake in impeaching Gachagua. Gachagua was impeached because he attempted to overthrow President William Ruto by organizing the Gen Z and the Limuru 3. The problem is you people are commenting and you don't know where this thing began. Don't wait to read in the newspaper and then come here and make statements. Know the truth of what happened. This is a man who, from day one, he started to, when the president says, oh, I have brought the Luo MPs to State House, he goes public tomorrow and says those people do not have shares in this government. That is insubordination, definitely.
Now, the audience is king. 2 observations again from members of the audience.
Yeah.
One says that she hopes one day the conversation will be complete without Owidi mentioning President Ruto. And another one says that we'll be doing injustice to leadership if we do not comment on the issue of garbage, the altercation between Kenya Power as well as the Nairobi County government. Just a minute each.
Actually, we were saying how Nairobi is a hub. People envy us, they come to us. But I do believe, one, he rightfully put it, without saying it, we are a hub of abductions. We abducted Shikedi, wanted to abduct Maria, and now we have moved to a county of tantrums, where we are a county of garbage and a county of opening sewers because you and KPLC have not agreed on something. It speaks of the leadership crisis we have. And I kept telling you, when people went for looks and forgot that we need substance is what you get. Now from dimples on the tarmac, cutters of potholes, now we have garbage bin Do you know that guy can be impeached because of that? People don't know that. He can be impeached.
Are you prepared to meet with
I wouldn't, because it's a waste of time, because the Super MCA is protecting him. The Super MCA is a party leader of ODM. You can't impeach him because he's the Super MCA. Up until the Super MCA decides, I will walk away from him, then he'll be impeached. Sadly, this is because ODM, and rather Azimio, has majority in the county assembly. If you are to impeach the guy, he'd be gone by today. If we
but Noordean, as a Kenyan, and I assume a taxpayer who lives and works in Nairobi, don't you think you will be running out from responsibility with this knowledge? You know that he can be impeached. Why can't you go and address the county assembly of Nairobi? And if they don't take your advice, you can go to the top of Mount Kenya and say that I told you.
I've already told him. Good. So I've already told them. This is the space I've told them, because at the end of the day, they subscribe. Oh, what does the party leader want? They have no independent mind of their own. That is a sad reality, and we need to change that. He spoke about county government. We also need to look at people we elect into office, because if they subscribe to what the party wants at the end of the day, this is what we get. And in ending, I believe I will, because the president never listens, but I think these days I see his TikTok account is quite active. I'll dedicate a song to him, or the admin should send him one. It's called Lokuta Monene. That song, or Papa. You know who that was? This guy was Mobutu. Listen to the song. That is where, if he's not careful, the end of that song is the end of his reign.
Now, Mwangale, are we safe with that dedication? Because
you know that song was a propaganda song. They would sing and say, "Lokuta Monene is a great lie. Anyone who says the MPR then in Congo was dead."
Yes.
So they were singing, trying to console Mobutu. Anyway, it's a good dedication. You should listen to that song. But I was going to say that Nairobi County sunk low. That was the lowest that we could have gone. But then I would not be accurate, because Nairobi County started sinking in 2013. In 2017, it hit rock bottom. In 2022, Nairobi County started digging. So we are way beyond rock bottom. And the reason I say that is because when you have a contention like the one Nairobi County and KPLC had, a leader of right thinking, a sane leader, would not do the things Sakaja ordered done. He cannot run away. I heard him say that he was not the one who drove the lorry. In fact, Nairobi County does not have garbage trucks. What we have are, repurposed transport vehicles, sand transport vehicles. That is unfortunate. But one of the things that came out from that spat between Nairobi County and KPLC is the fact that KPLC still has to pay way leaves to the counties or to government. I think that ought to change, because this is a service. It is a service. It is a security service. It is a consumer service to the people of Kenya. I don't think KPLC should be paying the county government or even the national government wayleave fees. I think that ought to change. The only thing that KPLC should be owing Nairobi County is perhaps the rates for the lands on which they stand. But that wayleave thing has come from way back. It has been maintained, and it is just unreasonable. But one of the things, and I support Noordean in saying that there are too many reasons that Sakaja should have been impeached. He's not impeached because, the MCAs are in bed and at the table with him. It's unfortunate for Nairobians that they will be getting piecemeal services over the years. If Nairobi got a good leader, this county will be very far from where it is now.
Are you offering yourself for election as Nairobi governor?
If Nairobians want to give me the job, I will do a very good job for them.
Thanks for the declaration.
I think what happened at the Steamer Plaza, Sakaja must take full responsibility. To come and say here that he's not the one who drove those trucks is to tell us that he's incapable of leading the people below him, even as low as driver level. That was very unfortunate. And that also tells you something about the leadership in which he is. Leadership is about using policies, laws, and regulations to do things. But that is the jungle law, the ones they were trying to use. If if KPLC owes them, and they also owe KPLC, all they need to do is call for a meeting and agree, you owe us this, we owe you this, how do we go about it? But to throw garbage at each other, because that is practically throwing garbage at each other,
and sewage
is not
and sewer.
what we expect. What we expect from it. Suppose there's an outbreak, because that garbage is collected from a corner of Kibera, a corner of Badare, a corner of Kilimani. And there could be infection lacking in some corner of it. And then you go and take it to a tarmac street and pour it there.
And you open the sewer, you know. You also open the
electricity house.
Electricity
Out
house.
of the abundance.
Out of the abundance of
First of all those people who did there should have been arrested. Then they say who ordered them to do that. And they go and tell where that order came from. Because we can't have anarchy in this country because some people who are elected who are not fit for the offices they were elected to. You know another problem which we have, the democracy in this country is all a fallacy. And I'm seeing Mwangale and Noordean are trying to create another super MP and super MCA the way they are saying.
Who is this?
Who is Rigathi? And you know what is going to happen? Do you know the Luos had since surrendered their rights and privileges of voting and choosing their leaders to their party leader Raila Odinga. The same thing I am now seeing, Rigathi is reading from exactly the same crypt Raila read from.
So you're giving Mount Kenya warning? I
am telling them they are going to suffer under theirs. They will love somebody. Then the guy will say, no.
He actually said he's going to ODM to do benchmarking and understand how he can make a political machine.
The democracy you fought for, that you liberated yourself from the single party of Moi and have, is not going to work. Let me tell you. In ODM counties, you cannot even think of impeaching a governor. You cannot.
It's true.
Because in the sale of nomination certificates, the governor was the wholesaler who decided which MCA is going to work with me.
You know, DM.
The reason I am sitting here with you and not in the parliament is because the governor of Mabey decided that he cannot work with somebody like me. He wants to work with somebody. She wants to work with somebody else.
We must create a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission for Owidi.
With Desmond Tutu.
Things have been done with who?
But I don't care.
Character development.
You know,
political character development.
I was designed for war and built for battle. So don't worry about me.
That has been Fireside, the home of politics, policy and politics. Thanks for your time. We hope you'll join us again. The panelists today have been amazing. It's been bare knuckles. And of course, we passed, Noordean, somebody has said a comment that I attacked you, but I've just said that, we were a bit of jokes to make the situation very exciting.
Yeah.
So, one of these members is saying that you should retain Mwangale to sue me, but it's important for them to know that...
Banter is part of it.
Yeah, thanks for your time. There has been Fireside. Asante sana. See you next.